Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Full Frontal Developer. No doubt you've seen some flashy web page content in your time and wondered how exactly is that done. Well, today with only a few lines of code and a couple of simple files, we ourselves are going to create something super fantastic. The name of today's project is the Split Landing Page, and to give you an idea of what a finished version of this product will look like, if I jump over here, I have here a beautiful little landing page comparing the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, and with a mouse over event you can see there's a beautiful transition of one to the other, as well as a nice light up button with the color of choice of product. And so nothing too incredible, but might be just the icing on a cake for your web page, and something that's super simple to create. And so this project is going to be incredibly intensive on the styling. So the CSS is going to be the largest part of this project. If I jump in here to our Visual Studios, which is an excellent application for doing front-end development, you'll see we have our three obligatory files. That's the index.html, the script.js, and the style.css. And so starting with the index, we're going to go ahead and start a live server stream so we can watch this project as it's being built. We're going to, as this being an HTML5 file, declare the doc type. We'll open up an HTML tag, define the language as being English, and we'll get started with our header tag. In the header tag, we need to have a couple of meta tags. The first meta tag is going to define the character set as being UTF-8, and this will ensure that all of our character encoding happens correctly. After that, we can define our viewport object, which is going to ensure that no matter which device is being used, that this is scaled and sized properly. So let's go ahead and name that viewport, and we'll define the content as being equal to the width equal to the device width, as so. And then we're going to set the initial scale equal to 1.0. And that's all we need for our meta tags. Next we can add a link to our style sheet. Which is going to be style.css. And after that we can add a title, which we'll just simply call Split Landing Page. Alright, that should be everything we need for the header tag. Let's go ahead and open up a body tag. And inside the body, we're going to have one major div container, and we're also going to have two internal divs, which will constitute the PlayStation 5 area and the Xbox Series 1X area. So let's call this one container. And inside this, I'm going to create a div that we will classify as being split left. And inside here, we're going to make an h1 tag, and that's going to read out the PlayStation 5. And under that, we're going to make a link, and it's just going to be a dead link because the functionality is not what we're concerned with. It's more the styling, but we will classify this as button so that we can style it. And I'm simply going to have the button say buy now. So that's everything we need for the div class. Let me go ahead and copy and paste this and make a second one down here. And we'll make this one for our Xbox Series 1X. We'll call it Xbox Series X. And the link can be the same, the button can still say buy now, and so that should be everything that we need. Lastly, before we actually close out our body tag, let's make a reference to our script, which is going to be sourced from script.js, and I believe that's everything we need in our HTML. So if we go ahead and start a live server stream with this one, we see here we have nothing that's super impressive, but we have not even begun. So now let's jump into the style.cs. This is going to be the most project intensive part of this project. So if I go over here to our fonts.google.com, I've selected a nice style called Rubato. Over here we have an import link, and we can select simply the annotation. We don't need the styling tags because this is going to be going directly into our CSS file. We'll copy and paste that, and that should be the first source that we have there, so we can borrow that font from Google. And the next thing is going to begin to define some universal styling. And so let me just jump over here to we're going to apply content to our root. And so what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to predefine some colors that we'll then be able to use as variable references throughout the styling document. So in the root, let's define something that we're going to call left BG color. We're going to set this equal to an RGBA setting of 87, 84, 236, and 0.7 for the alpha. Next, I'm going to define something that we're going to call right BG color. And this is going to be an RGBA value of 43, 43, 43, 0.8, 0.8, like that. And you can see that we're coming up with these nice, beautiful colors here. Next, we're going to define a left button hover color. And the left button hover color is going to have an RGBA value. We'll do 87, 84, 236, and then this is going to be a fully opaque color right there. Next, we'll do the right button hover color, and this will be the same version as the background color for the right, except for being fully opaque. So it's going to be, we'll actually do 28, 122, 28, and 1, because it's going to be a little bit different for the Xbox, but it will be fully opaque. Next, we're going to define something called a hover width, and we'll set that equal to 75% because that's how much we want it to encompass the screen when there's a mouse over event. The next thing we're going to define is going to be the other width, which we will naturally define as being 25%, and that's going to be where the other side regresses to. And then we're going to define a speed, which we will call, we'll define that as being 100 milliseconds, actually 1,000 milliseconds. Let's make that take a full second to transition. And those are going to be all of the universal variables that we're going to need to define in our root element there. And so I think we're off to a good start. There's something wrong with this color though. What did I forget? We have 28, 122, 28, and 1. I forgot to define this as being RGBA. Okay, perfect. There we go. We've got the colors that we're looking for there. It doesn't change anything in the document just as of yet, but if we jump in here, we can start to apply the universal styling. And so this is simply going to be a box sizing, which we're going to set equal to border box, just to keep things simple and organized. Next, we can start to style the body elements. So the body styling is going to have the font family that we're going to have set equal to the one that we've sourced, which is Roboto. And we'll define that as being sans serif, like so. If I save that, you can see that that's changed now. Next, we're going to define the height. We're going to do 100 view heights. And then we're going to do overflow hidden. We don't want to have any scroll bars. We want this to fully take up the entire screen. Then we'll set the margin equal to 0. And this is so that we can adjust the margins individually with every element. And that's everything we need for the body. So now let's go ahead and define our H1 stylings. For the H1 tags, let's do a font size. And we're going to make this 4 rem. Then we're going to do color, and we're going to set the color equal to just a simple white. So we'll do FFF for the hexadecimal. The position we're going to make absolute, because we want these to be able to be positioned within the elements themselves. So from there, we're going to do left of 50%, and we're going to do top of 20%. All right, so if we save that, it doesn't look like anything just right now, but we still have some further styling to do. So let's go ahead and define our transform event. The transform is going to be a translate across the x-axis, and it's going to be negative 50%. And this is going to be the same with both the H1 and with the buttons. We want them to move together. Then we're going to do white space of no wrap. And that's everything we need for the H1 tag. So if we jump in here and then begin to attack the button class, the button class is going to have a position of, not relative, a position of, let's see here, of absolute. But it's not working. Position, not relative. If I can type today, position absolute. Display, we're going to make flex. Then we're going to do align items center and justify content center. And then from there, we're going to give it a 50% left alignment and a 40% top alignment, like so. Okay, so it's starting to come into fruition now. Let's do a transform on the button, just as we did on the H1 tag, and this is going to be a translate X of negative 50%. And then we're going to do text decoration none. We don't want to have anything underlining or bordering it. So let's do text decoration of none for the button. And we'll do color equal to a simple white. Let's affect the border. So let's give it a white border. Let's make the border solid. And let's make the border of a size 2 rem, just like so. All right. It's hard to see it right now. There's a little bit more styling that needs to be done. We'll do a font size of 1 rem. We're going to do font weight of bold. And then we're going to do a text transform. And we're going to make it uppercase. We'll define the width as being 15 rem. And we'll define the padding at 1.5 rem. All right, so that should be everything we need for the button. Let's see if we can get this to show up in any legible way here. Okay, so it's not showing up just quite yet. I think there's some further styling that needs to happen before we actually get anything that's going to be flashy. So if we jump over here after styling the button, we can jump into the hover events of the button. So let's attack the split left and then focus on the button in its hover state. Give it a background color. And this is going to be a reference to a variable, which is going to be the left button hover color, like that. And then the border color is also going to be a reference to a variable that we previously defined as being the left button hover color. All right, excellent. Next, we're going to define the split right. And within that, we're going to focus on the button in its hover state. And that button is going to have a background color. It's going to be the variable reference that we made, and this one's going to be the right button hover color. And the border color is as well going to be the right button hover color, like so. All right, great. So now if we go ahead and jump into the container, from here we can define our position as being relative. We want to give it a width of 100%. We want to give it a height of 100% so that it fills the entire screen. And then we'll define a background as being just a gray. We'll just do a 333 like that. Okay, now it's starting to come into fruition. We can start to see it now, although it is, of course, overlapping because we still have some more styling to do. Let's jump into the split from a narrow reference. So simply the split itself, we're going to position absolute, and we're going to do a width of 50%, and we're going to do a height of 100%, and then we're going to hide any potential overflow, like so. All right. Then we need to do the split left and the split right respectively. So let's jump into the split left, and we'll do a left margin of, or a left positioning of 0. We're going to do a background, and then from here we need to add the URL reference that we have for the background. I'm going to just leave it blank for now. We'll go ahead and source that out in just a moment. We will define the background repeat as being no repeat. And then the background size is going to be set equal to cover, like so. Next, we'll go ahead and do, actually, let's go ahead and define the split right. So that's going to be split right. And on its own, it's going to be very similar. We're going to do a right positioning of 0. We're going to do the background, and we'll pick out a URL for that. We'll leave that blank just for now. We'll do a no repeat on the background, and we'll make sure that the background size is set equal to cover, like so. All right, so now before moving forward, let's go ahead and I'll jump into where I've got the links to the background images. These, of course, could be any images that you see fit, but for the PlayStation, I just have this image here that I've got a link to. I'm going to copy and paste that link into the left side URL right there. And then over here, I have the link to the Xbox picture, which I'm just going to copy and paste that link as well into the URL for the right element. Okay, so since I have both of those, if I jump back over here and save it, we should start to see that start to come into shape right now. So now, after doing the split left and the split right, we need to define the before and the we need to define the before events for each one of those, because we want to make sure that there's going to be that transition and then what happens before the transition. And so the split right, rather the split left before. And because we're defining an event, we have to go ahead and set some content, otherwise it won't work. So we're just going to set that content to the empty content. The position we're going to make absolute. The width is going to be 100%. The height also 100%. And then the background color, we're going to set the background color equal to the variable reference that we defined as being the left background color, like so. And then we'll go through and do the same thing with the split right. So the split right before, and because we're referencing the event, we need to set some content, which for all intents and purposes, we're just going to be empty content. And the split right before is going to be similar to the left. It's just going to have a position of absolute. It's going to have a width and a height of 100%. And it's going to have the background color set equal to a reference to the variable that we defined as being the right background color, as so. All right, so it's starting to look like it's taking shape now. So now let's go ahead and grab the split right and the split left and each one of those versions in their before state and then apply a transition. And so that's going to be done by just calling a reference to all of these. We'll do split right, split left, split right before, and split left before, and do some simultaneous styling on all of these. And so what we'll be doing here is simply applying the transition, and the transition is going to be sourcing the speed that we've defined as being 1,000 milliseconds, and we'll have it as an ease in out transition. Next, let's go ahead and start to style our hover events. And so the hover left on the dot left class is going to be adjusting the width, and the width is going to be sourcing a variable of the hover width that we defined. And then the hover, we have to actually define the width of the left and the right for each hover on the left and the right. So let's do another hover left, but with a dot right class, and we'll do the width equal to the variable of the other width, which is going to be the 25%. So when it hovers left, the left will then change to the 75% and the right will change to the 25%. And then we can go through and define the hover right dot left, which is going to be the opposite. This will be the width equal to the other width, which is the 25%. And then that same hover right on a dot right will occupy the 75% of the width. Like so. All right. Just a little bit more styling that we have to do here. Let's go ahead and make a reference to the media. Let's make a media call to see if our screen size is greater than 800 pixels, and if it is, we're going to adjust the size of our H1 header tags to make them a little bit more digestible on a smaller screen. And so with a media query, we're going to say max width greater than 800 pixels. In that case, let's do an H1 font size of 2 rem, and let's bring the top down to 30%. And then if that's the case, let's also adjust the button to have a width of 12 rem and a padding of 1.2 rem. And that will take care of adjusting screen sizes. All right, so looks like we're getting there. If I maximize this, looks like there's something wrong with my Xbox image link. I'm not really sure what that is, so let's go ahead and check that out. If I jump back up here to our split right, looks like I got that in there correctly, so I'm not really sure why that's not cropping up yet, but it could have something to do with some remaining JavaScript. So I believe that's everything we need to do in the styling page. So if we jump over to the JavaScript, let's see if we can make this work. This will actually be very short. We just need to define a couple of constants. We'll do a constant that we'll call left and set it equal to a document query selector. Just a single selector is all we need because we only have one left element. We're going to do a constant that we'll call right, and we'll also set that equal to a document query selector to the single right element that we have. Then we're going to grab the container, and that's also going to be a query selector, and we're going to reference the container class. Now we're going to do an event listener on the left, and the event is going to be a mouse over. And in the event of a mouse over, we're going to pass through a function, which is going to be the container.classList.add, and we're going to add a class list of hover left. And then we're also going to add an event listener. Add event listener. This one is going to be a mouse leave. And this one will also have a function that we're going to pass through, and we're going to take the container and we're going to do a class list.remove. Next, we'll do the same thing with the right. We'll add the event listener. This one's going to be a mouse over. And in the event that there is a mouse over, we will pass through a function. We're going to add the class list of hover right. If I can type. And then we'll add the event listener for the mouse leave. And in that event, we will remove a class list called hover right. And that is all the JavaScript that we need. And so if we've done this correctly, maximize this, still not seeing that work. There's something here that we've missed. And of course, it's something simple and stupid, because when I did the copy and paste on the div class in the HTML, I forgot to change this one to right. So this actually should be a split right div class. Let's see if that does anything for us. Perfect. And so now it's working just as we had expected with the button hover over and the mouse over and mouse leave events. And so we have ourselves a beautiful little split landing page. So hopefully this was an enjoyable tutorial. Sorry about all the confusion. Sometimes the simplest mistakes are the ones that affect the code the greatest. Anyway, looking forward to seeing everyone back again in the next video, and thank you so much. And as always, this code is available in a link to the GitHub, so feel free to download that, edit it as you see fit. See everyone back again in the next video. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.